Hey everyone, it's Tango Oscar Mike. I want to talk about fast log entry today. Fast log entry is a program you use to help you enter in paper logs for like Parks on the Air or SOTA. I'm going to be specifically focusing on Parks on the Air, and I know other people have done videos on this program, but I think I might have something new for you. Kyle Alpha Alpha Zero said Zero Z did a great video on this program, and actually that's what introduced me to it, and I've been using it since. Now I tried reaching out to the creator, Delta Foxtrot 3 Charlie Bravo, and to ask him what it would take for him to add Parks on the Air support, but I never got a response from him, so I don't know if he's doing any updates to this program at this time. I have used apps on my phone in the past, and I always end up going back to paper and pencil. I think it's faster, and if you make a mistake in the app, like this last activation, I made a bunch of contacts, several contacts on 20, and then I switched to 40 meters, and I forgot to enter in the new frequency in the app. So in the end, I had a bunch of contacts logged on the wrong frequency, and I had to go through and edit those and correct that. I found when I'm doing this on paper, I don't seem to forget that, and I just seem to go faster. That's no fault of the apps on the phone. It's just me. Now I like using apps on the Hammers app on my computer, and I like using N3FJP and other logging programs. But I found it on my phone and touchscreens. I just really don't care to use applications. So I go back to paper, and one of the benefits that I found of using paper is that when you're working PAL-ups, you can write down the call signs of multiple people or partial call signs, then you can work those call signs and partial call signs without having to call QRZ again. And I think that makes the call signs, the process go faster. And I also think that if somebody's trying to reach you and they call a bunch of times and you don't never answer or pull them out of the PAL-up, or if you hear somebody call you, say two people call you, you answer one and then you call QRZ again, and 20 more people call you and you didn't hear that station. Sometimes I feel stations drop off and then they don't call back. So I kind of like working the people that I hear first, and that's one way to do it. So fast log entry isn't perfect for POTA. There are some flaws in it, some things you have to do. Specifically, if you're working all K stations, which K is for stations in the United States, that's easy to edit at the end. But if you're working parks in multiple countries, like Canada is VE instead of K, that becomes a problem at the end when you're editing. So it's just a matter of how you're mixing. Most of my contacts are K stations in other parks, K parks in the United States. But if I work a few stations in Canada while I'm doing my Parks on the Activation, it's not that big of a deal. So let's start with the application. The first thing we're going to look at here is, if you see I'm on this first line and it is highlighted in yellow, and that is because there's an error on that line because there's not correct information or complete information. So it wants my call sign. I'm going to do N3WS, my grid EN90, operator N3WS, my WWFF. WWFF is Worldwide Flora and Fauna. So for my park, instead of using K-1409, which is the park I was at last, I'm going to use WWFF-1409. And then this will have to get edited at the end, and that's what I want to show you. So I'm not doing the SOTA, so I'm going to take that out. The date, let's put in yesterday's date just to be good. And I'm going to say I started at 12:30. And let's say I was on 20 meters. Now you can say 20, you can put in the frequency .285. Actually, I think I was on 260. And then I did SSB. If you want to be more clear, you can put an M there, and then you can see the line, all the data on the line is correct. So now, let's say the first person I contacted was at 12:31, so I can just put in the 31. Alpha Bravo 1 Alpha. I gave him a 5.8. He gave me a 4.4. And let's say he was at another park. So again, you have to use the WWFF dash. And I'm going to say he was at Hillman State Park 1306. And bam. So that entry's been added. Next person called me 3.3. Let's see, this is N3XE. 5.5.5.4. Another entry, 3.6. Let's do Kilo Charlie 3 Echo Kilo Zulu. I gave him a 5.7. He gave me a 5.4. And let's say he was at a park. Let's just make up a park here. Let's say 1350. Let's do some other calls. Let's say it was 45 minutes later. I worked somebody else. Let's do K3 PSP. Say 5.5.5.5. Turn. Let's say 5.0. Say K3 SEM. 5.9.5.9. Let's say he's at another park. I know it's going to make something up. 13.10. And let's say he made a comment that this was his first HF contact. I can put in use the greater than and less than signs and say first HF contact. Close that. And as you can see over here on the right, it's going to put in that information as a comment. So that's how you do comments. So let's say I switch to 40 meters. I can say 40 meters, 7 dot. Now I'm going to show you an error. If I type in a frequency that's out of band, let's say 301, it's going to highlight that in yellow because that's incorrect. If I say 250, it's going to be correct. And I can, again, say single sideband. And let's just put in a couple more contacts. Let's put in Kyle, Alpha Alpha. Let's say this was at 1301. A0Z 5756. And let's do one more. 05. Let's do okay. So there's my log, and that's what I would do if I was entering in my paper log. It's actually pretty simple to do. I think I covered all the important stuff. So now what I would do is I would save this log file. So I'm going to do File, and I'm going to save ADIF. Oh, there's a MySoda at the top. I don't want that. I don't know. I didn't see when that popped up. But File, Save. Why does it keep putting a soda at the top? I'm not doing a soda. Oh, maybe that's why. So I had a setting in here that had both WWF and soda logging, so it wanted more information. So that should take care of it. I can take this MySoda out of there now, and it shouldn't come back. So let's file and let's save the ADIF file. So there we go. So I'm just going to say FLE test .ADI, and it's going to save that file. Okay, so I don't need that anymore. Now what you want to get is this. This is a free program. If you just search for Notepad++. You can use a regular Notepad text editor. Notepad++ has some extra features in it. It's great if you've ever want to do multiple editing on multiple text files. If you're doing any type of coding, it has some features in there for that. So I already have this downloaded. This, like I said, it's a great application. It's free. It doesn't cost anything, and it runs on Windows. I even think there's Linux versions, but it is a really good text editor. So I'm going to go to my download folder. I'm going to right click and say Open with Notepad++ since I have that program installed. And here is the log. And let me just increase the size. So if you look, there's the calls, there's the date, the time, the band, the mode, and the frequency. And if you scroll over, here's the fields that you need for POTA, which is my signature, my sig info, and then sig and sig info are areas that are used for parks on the air logging, and those have to be changed before you can submit. This needs to be the Ks and this needs to be the POTA. Now, you could do a search and replace each time you have a text document, but that can be time consuming. So with Notepad++, what you can do is set up a macro. And how you do that is you just go up here and say macro and say start recording. So now anything I do is going to be recorded. So the first thing I want to do is I want to change this my sig WWF. So I'm going to Control C. I'm going to do a search and replace. It's going to put that there. I'm going to put it here. And I'm going to say POTA. And replace all. So that replaced all those with POTA. Now, whatever comes after this greater sign, this field, this number tells you how many characters are in that field. So POTA is 4 characters. So my sig says, hey, that the next string of characters is 4 characters long. So the next one I want to do is this WWF, which this would be my K number. Now, if you had VE stations, you would have to go and edit those ones manually after you did this. Again, I'm going to do search and replace. It populates that top field. I'm going to put it here. Now I'm just going to put in, I just need the K here. So since that K is going to make this 6 characters instead of 9 characters, I also need to change this number. You're only going to have to do this once because you're going to be using the macro. So if I say replace all, it fixed all those numbers to there. And we need to do that over here as well. So for these stations, again, this is park to park contacts. I do Control C, search, replace. And instead of WWF for this, this will be POTA. Replace all. Close. And then the park they were at. I need to change that to Ks as well. So search and replace. And again, this is going to be the K for the park number, and that's going to end up being a 6 because that field is then 6 characters long. Replace, close. So now my log is correct. If you look at this top entry, my sig info is POTA, my sig is POTA, my sig info is K1409. Their info, they are at a park, POTA, and their sig info was K1306. Now, if they weren't at a park, it doesn't affect those fields at all, but it's done. So now if I go up and say macro and say stop recording, and then go to macro and say save current recorded macro, I can type in the macro I want to say. I already have one saved, but I'm going to make a new one. I'm going to call this FLE edit 2, because I think the first one I called was edit 1. And I can say Control Shift and let's say 8. Okay. And I've just saved that macro. So now what I'm going to do, I'm not going to save this log file because I want to re-edit it again, just to show you. So if I close this, wait, not what I wanted to do. Let's close this. Yeah, close it, and I don't want to save it. So there's nothing in here right now. So if I go back and reopen up that log file that should be unedited, and as you look, if we scroll over, yeah, so it's back to the WWF fields. Now, if I go to my macro list, I can go here and say FLE edit 2, and I can edit this, have it edit automatically. I can also do Control Shift 8. So let me scroll over and show you. It's still saying WWF. If I say Control Shift 8, my log has been edited. And now all I have to do is save this log and I can import it. I can email it then to the coordinator for my area, and I can also import this into N3FJP, and I'm done. Now, if one of these stations happened to be a VE station, a VE park, I would have to look up that particular entry and edit it and say, okay, instead of a K, here, let me scroll over a little bit. Instead of a K 1310, I would say this is a VE 1310. And of course, I'd have to change this number to match the number of characters here. So that's 7. And that's what I would have to do for any station that wasn't a K station. So that's the one drawback to this. There's no way to get around that from what I can figure out. But the number of VE stations I worked is kind of minor, so I'm not too concerned with it. But that's just something to keep in mind. But that's what I have. That's my little tip, is using Notepad++ to make your editing of your Parks on the Air apps faster. So now every time I enter a log and I come into Notepad++ to enter it, to send it off, all I would have to do is do my Control-Shift-8, and it'll run that macro and edit everything in the log. And you can use Notepad++ to edit other text files in this manner as well. And it's really handy. I use this at work all the time, and it's very beneficial to me. It saves me a lot of time. Hey, this is Tango Oscar Mike. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, give me a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please give me a subscribe. And we'll see you next time. Take care, everyone. 73.
Tango Oscar Mike.